The crystalline cavern echoed with the hiss of escaping atmosphere as Jaden pushed through the emergency exit hatch. His lungs burned from exertion, and his protective suit flickered with warning lights. The crash had been violent, sudden, catastrophic. One moment he'd been piloting the exploration vessel through uncharted space. The next, some kind of energy signature had disabled every system. He stumbled across the smooth, translucent floor, watching his reflection dance in the multifaceted walls around him. The entire cavern seemed carved from massive crystals that refracted light into dancing colors. Beautiful and utterly alien. His heart hammered against his ribs as he checked his oxygen levels. 12 hours before he needed to find either a way out or make peace with becoming one more lost explorer in the infinite dark. That's when he found her. She lay suspended in a pod of crystalline material, her form draped in robes that shimmered like liquid starlight. Jaden's breath caught. She was humanoid, but distinctly other. Her skin held an iridescent quality, and her features possessed an otherworldly elegance that made his chest tighten. Her eyes were closed, long lashes casting shadows across cheekbones that seemed sculpted by art itself. Every rational part of Jaden screamed danger. This was an alien world, and she was clearly something important, something powerful. His training dictated that he document and retreat. Instead, he found himself moving closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. As he approached, the pod's light intensified. Alarms shrieked through the cavern. Before Jaden could react, the crystalline walls began to glow. The pod opened with a sound like singing glass, and the alien woman's eyes snapped open, brilliant, golden, absolutely awake. She gasped, stumbling forward. Jaden reached out instinctively to steady her. His gloved hands caught her shoulders, and in that moment, something catastrophic happened. Her robe slipped from her shoulder, and Jaden's suit malfunctioned. The fabric dissolved under the energy of the pod's release, leaving his arm exposed, skin-to-skin contact with this creature he'd just met. The alien woman stared at him, her golden eyes widening as she looked at his bare skin. A flush spread across her ethereal features. She whispered something in a language that sounded like crystalline chimes and humming light. Then she pulled back, her eyes blazing with something between outrage and desire. Her hand rose, and Jaden felt the weight of authority in the gesture. "You have seen me in vulnerability," she said, her accent strange but perfectly comprehensible. "And I have seen your unclothed form. According to our law, this is binding. You may choose, marry me and become my equal, or refuse and become my bonded servant for life. Decide now, human." Jaden's mind spun. Everything had changed in a single moment. Behind her, lights began to illuminate deeper chambers. Distant footsteps echoed closer. He was about to answer when everything shifted into chaos and consequence. Seraphine's eyes burned with something between fury and desperate hope. Jaden could see her hands trembling despite the authority in her voice. She was terrified, he realized. Whatever their law meant, she was as bound by it as he was now. "My name is Jaden," he said carefully, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "And I don't even know your name." Relief flickered across her features. "I am Seraphine, ambassador of the Crystalline Collective, and you have complications everything by existing here." Footsteps echoed louder. Seraphine grabbed his arm, her touch sending electricity through his entire body. She pulled him away from the pod, toward a passage hidden behind cascading curtains of crystalline formations. They moved through darkness, lit only by the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures that drifted like living stars through the air. "Why are you running?" Jaden asked as they navigated the winding tunnels. "If you're an ambassador, you have authority here." "Exactly," Seraphine whispered, "which is why others will use this situation for political gain. My father, Elder Vassimore, has enemies who would use a forbidden bond with a human to remove me from succession. We must reach the neutral ground before anyone discovers what has transpired between us." They emerged into a vast chamber where the air itself seemed to shimmer with ancient power. Jaden recognized it immediately. Ruins of a civilization far older than either of theirs. Stone structures spiraled toward a ceiling so distant it disappeared into shadow. Seraphine slowed, her hand still gripping his arm. "The binding you spoke of," Jaden said carefully. "What does it actually mean? Is it truly marriage, or something else?" Seraphine turned to face him, and in the pale light, Jaden saw vulnerability there. Fear, longing. Among our people, physical contact this intimate creates a bond at the genetic and psychic level. It is permanent and irrevocable. But only among our kind is it automatically binding. You are human. According to ancient treaties, we must honor your consent. Marriage is one option, but so is refusal, which would mark you as servant. There is a third option, but it is forbidden. What's the third option? Jaden moved closer, unable to help himself. Seraphine's breath caught as he reached out, letting his fingers brush her cheek. Would choosing that forbidden thing make you as much of an outlaw as choosing to marry me would? Yes, she whispered. The third option is to accept the bond willingly, but remain unbound by law. To be together outside of all structure, all safety, all convention. Jaden felt something shift inside him. He'd been trained in diplomacy, in careful decision-making, but nothing had prepared him for Seraphine, for the way she looked at him like he contained entire universes. He reached down and gently took her hand, watching as her eyes widened. "I think," he said softly, "I choose the forbidden thing." Seraphine's breath came faster. She leaned into him, and when their lips met, it was like two worlds finally understanding each other. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper. Her fingers wove through his hair as he pulled her close, his hands tracing the curve of her spine. Every touch felt laden with meaning, with rebellion, with rightness. When they finally separated, Seraphine was trembling. "We have to move. My father will send hunters. But Jaden, know this, whatever comes, I chose you before you chose me. The moment I awoke and saw you, I knew." A sound echoed through the chamber, hunting calls in that chiming language. Seraphine pulled him toward another passage, but this time she didn't let go of his hand. They ran together into the deeper dark, toward something neither of them could predict, toward a future that rewrote every law either of them had known. The tunnel system seemed to go on forever. Jaden's lungs burned, and his suit's warning alarms screamed about air quality and exposure time. Seraphine moved with impossible grace, despite her flowing robes, her feet knowing each twist and turn as if she'd been born from these caves. "Through here," she urged, pulling him into a side passage that twisted downward at an alarming angle. Behind them, the hunting calls grew louder. Whatever Seraphine's father had sent, they were persistent. They emerged into a vast cavern lit by thermal vents that glowed with alien algae in shades of green and violet. Seraphine collapsed against a stone outcropping, breathing hard. Jaden joined her, placing his arm around her shoulders. They stayed like that for a moment, neither speaking, just being present in the chaos they'd created. "They will follow us to the edge of the world if they must," Seraphine said quietly. "You have become the catalyst for everything. If we return, they will separate us. My father would exile me for bringing shame to our house." "Then we don't return," Jaden said simply. "Not to your father, not to my superiors. We go somewhere in between." Seraphine turned to look at him, her golden eyes searching. "You would abandon everything? Your people, your mission, your life?" "I don't know who I am without you anymore," Jaden replied. "And that terrifies me, but not as much as the idea of losing you." A figure emerged from the shadows ahead, and both of them tensed. Jaden positioned himself defensively, but Seraphine gripped his arm. The figure resolved into a woman with dark skin, cybernetic implants glowing softly along her temples, and an easy smile that suggested she'd seen stranger things than a human and an alien running together. "Nova?" Seraphine said, with genuine surprise and relief. "The one and only," the woman confirmed, moving closer. "Though I hear I've arrived at quite the moment. Seraphine, your father has put out a bounty on your location. He's calling you a traitor to the collective. As for you, human, I don't think your military has the word for what they're calling you, but it's not complimentary." "Who is she?" Jaden asked quietly. "Nova is a merchant from the neutral stations," Seraphine explained. "She trades in technology and information between all the civilizations. She is bound to no one and trusted by many." "Exactly," Nova said. "And as it happens, I have a ship about 2 cycles from here. If you want to disappear, I can make that happen, but it will cost you." "What do you want?" Seraphine asked warily. Nova's smile widened. "Just the truth. Are you actually bonded, or is this some elaborate political scheme?" Jaden and Seraphine exchanged glances. Jaden took Seraphine's hand firmly. "We're bonded in a way that transcends your politics, and we're choosing it freely every moment." Nova studied them for a long moment, then nodded. "That's what I thought. Follow me. We have hunters converging on 3 fronts. If we move quickly, we can lose them in the lower caves and reach my ship before they even know we've doubled back." They moved through passage after passage, Seraphine and Nova leading, while Jaden brought up the rear, watching for pursuit. Nova talked in low tones about safe houses and blind spots, about the neutral ground where multiple species coexisted without formal alliances. It sounded impossible and perfect. Finally, they emerged into a massive chasm where a sleek vessel hovered on anti-gravity fields. Nova led them up the ramp. As they sealed the airlock behind them, Jaden looked out at the crystalline caverns one last time, then turned to Seraphine. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we fly towards something that has never existed before," Seraphine said, stepping into his arms as Nova engaged the engines. "A love that belongs to neither of our worlds, and perhaps if we're brave enough, we create something entirely new." As the ship lifted away from the surface, Jaden kissed Seraphine softly, tasting starlight and rebellion and an uncertain future. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The neutral station was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure suspended in space, where 3 different species maintained an uneasy but productive peace. Jaden and Seraphine had hidden there for weeks, living in the shadowed quarters Nova had arranged, stealing moments of intimacy between learning each other's worlds. But peace, Jaden was learning, was often an illusion. The message came through Nova's encrypted channel. Elder Vasimor had declared Seraphine a heretic and imprisoned her status. The human military, meanwhile, had marked Jaden as a defector and security risk. Both of them were now hunted by their own people for the crime of loving each other. "We need to make a choice," Jaden said quietly, as they lay together in the darkness of their quarters, Seraphine's head resting on his chest. "We can keep running forever, but that's not a life. That's just survival." "My father will never accept this," Seraphine whispered. "Bonding with a human violates everything crystalline law stands for, but I have realized something. My father is one generation. I represent the next. What if we challenge them? What if we showed both our peoples that connection is possible?" "They'd execute us," Jaden said gently, "or exile us, or worse." "Perhaps," Seraphine agreed, "but we would die as ourselves, not as ghosts running through shadows." The next morning, Seraphine sent a formal message to her father. She requested a council meeting at the neutral ground with human representatives present as well. She promised that both sides would understand the implications of what had transpired between them. And most importantly, she promised the truth. Commander Thorne arrived with a full military contingent. He was Jaden's superior, a hard man with harder eyes. He walked into the neutral chamber, saw Jaden standing beside Seraphine, and his jaw clenched. "You're a traitor," Thorne said flatly, "and you're a security risk to all humanity." "I'm a man who fell in love with someone extraordinary," Jaden replied, "and yes, I violated protocols to do it. If that makes me a traitor, then I'll accept that judgment. But I won't apologize for choosing her." Elder Vasimor entered moments later, his crystalline robes catching the light, his expression carved from ice. His eyes found Seraphine with something between fury and concern. "You shame our entire house," Vasimor said coldly, "and you bind yourself to a creature less evolved than the lowest servant caste." Seraphine stepped forward, her hands still intertwined with Jaden's. "Father, you taught me that the crystalline collective values knowledge above all things. Then, learn this. The humans have mathematics we've never conceived of. They have art that moves me to tears. They have capacity for love that transcends your narrow laws, and I have transcended them in return. We are not one or the other. We are something new. Something that cannot exist," Vasimor said. "The laws are written in crystal itself. To break them is to shatter the foundation of everything we are." "Then perhaps the foundation needs to shatter," a new voice said. Nova stepped forward, and with her came 3 other individuals, representatives from different species who'd been watching, listening, waiting. "I've been conducting my own research. In the ancient records, before your crystalline period, your people bonded with other species freely. You chose isolation, chose purity, chose hierarchy. But that choice was made long ago, by people less wise than you." Commander Thorne spoke quietly. "The Human Federation won't recognize any bond that violates our interspecies protocols." "Then perhaps your protocols are due for revision," Jaden said. He squeezed Seraphine's hand, felt her squeeze back. "Because I'm not letting her go, not for military orders, not for law, not for anything in this universe." What happened next surprised everyone. A young crystalline soldier stepped forward and removed his helmet. He was barely past adolescence, Jaden realized. My sister bonded with a merchant from the outer stations 3 cycles ago, he said, his voice steady. I was ordered to report her. I didn't, because I saw her happiness, and I realized our laws were suffocating us. Others began speaking up. Humans who'd befriended aliens, species who'd worked together and wanted to do more. A quiet revolution, built not on violence, but on testimony. Elder Vassamore watched it all, his expression unreadable. Finally, he approached Jaden and Seraphine directly. He looked at their intertwined hands, at the way they stood together as an unbreakable unit. If you are truly bonded, Vassamore said slowly, then by even older laws, older than the crystalline code, you are family. And family cannot be separated by those who came after. He paused. I do not understand this choice, but I see that it is made, and I see that change, however frightening, may be the only evolution available to us. The golden bridge stretched between 2 worlds, suspended in the space between the human vessel and the crystalline collective's embassy. It was neutral ground, sacred ground, built specifically for this moment. Neither side had ever imagined they would use it for something like this. Yet here it was, shimmering with possibility. Jaden stood at the human end, dressed in formal diplomatic attire that felt too constricting. Marcus, his original crewmate who'd survived the crash, stood beside him as witness. Marcus grinned and clapped him on the shoulder. You're actually doing this, Marcus said with disbelief. You're actually choosing her over everything. I already chose her the moment I saw her, Jaden replied. This is just making it official. On the crystalline side, Seraphine waited, draped in robes that seemed woven from pure light. Her father stood beside her, no longer angry, but resigned and strangely proud. The ceremony was unprecedented, a human and crystalline bonding, witnessed by both peoples, blessed by both cultures, or at least tolerated by them. As Jaden walked across the golden bridge, his heart thundered in his chest. Seraphine began walking toward him at the same moment. They met in the middle, in the exact center where both worlds held equal sway. I'm terrified, Seraphine whispered as they faced each other. What if they decide to separate us anyway? Then we'll run again, Jaden said softly, taking her hands. And again for as long as we live. But I don't think they will. I think we've shown them something they needed to see. That love doesn't care about borders or biology or law. That connection is the most powerful force in any universe. They spoke vows that were part human, part crystalline, part something entirely new. Jaden promised to honor Seraphine's dual nature, to learn her language, to walk between her world and his forever. Seraphine promised the same, her voice steady and certain despite the magnitude of the moment. When the officiator, one of Nova's neutral contacts, asked if anyone objected, the silence was profound. Commander Thorne didn't speak. Elder Vassamore didn't speak. Only the distant hum of the bridge and the gentle breathing of 2 beings about to become officially one. Then I declare this bond witnessed and honored by all present, the officiator said. Let it be known, across all species, that love has transcended every boundary we've constructed. Let it stand as testament and warning. The universe is larger and more complex than our laws can contain. Jaden kissed Seraphine as both humans and crystalline beings witnessed the moment. It was gentle and passionate all at once, a kiss that carried the weight of two civilizations and the lightness of two hearts finally at peace. As they drew apart, Jaden whispered, "Welcome to my world." Seraphine smiled, her golden eyes bright with tears. "Welcome to ours." And as they walked back across the golden bridge, hand in hand, one final time, Jaden realized that they weren't walking back to either world. They were walking toward something entirely new, a space that belonged to both of them and neither of them. A future written in the language of love that every species in the universe understood. Marcus cheered. Nova raised her glass from somewhere in the crowd. Even Elder Vassamore nodded with what might have been approval. The future was uncertain, the path ahead uncharted, but Jaden and Seraphine faced it together, and that made all the difference. Two worlds had collided, and instead of shattering, they had finally learned how to dance.